All righty, to everyone here in the room, we're ready to start our program. Thank you all. So greetings, it's nice to feel this energy in the room. Welcome everyone, my name is Rhonda Haynes, and it is my great pleasure and honor to serve as the Executive Director of the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues. That's a mouthful, we call it NAUDL. So we are, for those who don't know, we are a backbone organization that supports 20 urban debate leagues across the country, known as the Urban Debate Network. I've been chatting to a few students today, and a few people knew and others did not. So there is urban debate happening in 19 other cities across the US. So in most major cities, thousands of students, actually 11,000 nearly, are doing exactly what everyone here is doing, which is benefiting from the great competitive activity of debate. So working together with the Urban Debate Network, we address a tremendous gap in the education landscape, advancing debate education, and helping students build skills that elevate academic achievement, verbal communication, and civic engagement. Now more than ever, we believe in the power of amplifying voices and fostering open dialogue as catalysts for a better future. For now, the 4th season, we are excited to present I Resolve, which is what we'll see here tonight, a public debate series launched in 2020 with the goal of engaging high school students in real conversation about the most pressing issues in their communities. Tonight, we are elated to partner with the Dallas Urban Debate Alliance, providing a platform for Dallas students to showcase their talents of persuasion, research, critical thinking, all honed through the competitive activity of debate. This evening aims to affirm everyone's faith in the great American tradition of debate, which is rooted in thoughtful analysis and respectful discourse. For the last several weeks, these students have been preparing their arguments, and they propose viable solutions for economic inequality right here in the United States. In tonight's debate, these students will explore a community action approach to housing inequality right here in Dallas. As the Dallas Urban Debate Alliance pilots this particular form of debate this year, we're so very excited to showcase it, while also hearing from students on an issue that quite literally could not hit more closely to home. After the debaters' initial arguments, our esteemed guest panelists, right in front of this podium here, will be offering commentary on debaters' arguments, providing both perspective and feedback for students to consider before the final summation of their cases. We're grateful to these professionals who either cover, study, or represent active policies and positions around economic inequality. Making this dynamic discussion possible are generous 2023 I Resolve financial sponsors. I want to acknowledge with personal appreciation event sponsor Liz and Randall Sandler, and series sponsors, the Asia Group Foundation and Massey and Gale LLP. Thank you all for your continued commitment to NAUDL, and in particular, this platform. And of course, I extend gratitude to Southern Methodist University for allowing us to host this event on campus. Having held our Urban Debate National Championship right here in Dallas on this campus last spring, it's wonderful once again to have the support of the university community. And now, I am pleased to introduce Cindy Timmons, Executive Director of the Dallas Urban Debate Alliance. Cindy will share a few words and introduce our fantastic debaters as well as our panelists. Again, much appreciation to everyone for being here, and you're all in for a treat, as am I. Thank you. Cindy?
Every teacher in the room will know what I say when you feel like you've prepared and you've got a lesson that's ready to go, and then you have this great feedback and turnout from your audience. You did it. You did it right. So thank you for making the rest of my year, honestly, for all being here. So teachers, thank you for bringing the students. Students, thank you for coming. I think you will enjoy this. So tonight we're featuring our community action debate. It's a new format that we created this past year. And we will have two young women, Caitlin and Guadalupe from Irma Rangel Young Women's Leadership School. Debating Hope and Hank from JBS Law Magnet. Our esteemed panel will be Dr. Chris Salinas of SMU, Mr. Aaron Timmons, the Director of Debate at Green Hill School, and Mazen Spady, the lead partner, I guess the founder of the Spady law firm. And when we will also have before that, we are bringing in, because we want to bring debate to you at the most local level, we are bringing a guest from Japa, the little neighborhood that we're featuring today, Mrs. Giroux, who's going to give you a few comments of background about this neighborhood that is the core of our debate this evening. So if you would come forward. We are so excited to bring you featuring debate, not about winning trophies, about winning awards, but about changing communities. And that's the focus of community action debate. Mr.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, students, for including me in this opportunity to discuss Japa. Thank you, Caitlin. This is my neighbor, y'all. She's been my neighbor for 18 years. We've been saying I'm so proud of her and her drive. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tamika Duro, and I'm a 18-year resident of Japa. I have a Habitat in 2006, Habitat for Humanity built me and my family a home. We have 3 children. They are all grown and graduated from the ISD schools. Awesome. Public education is good. So I've been living in Japa for 18 years. I'm just gonna speed this up. I moved there after 10 years living there. I asked myself, I'm living in this community. Am I a part of this community? Everybody live in a community, but are you a part of it? It's a difference. So I went to a community meeting, and it was with Union Pacific and Martin Marietta. It's an industrial company, and they were requesting a special permit. It's a special permit to increase industrial around the Japa community. And in the meeting, the CEO, I'm not going to call his name, some of y'all might know him. The CEO stated, we compared y'all air to a Burger King. I said, where is the Burger King? Because it's no Burger King if around Japa. Anyone know where Japa is? Let me see some hands. Anybody been to Japa? Know where Japa at? Okay, so if you knew where Japa was, there's no Burger King. It's only the train, Temco roofing, rock structures from like 12, 13 feet tall. We're around the landfill. No Burger King. So he was suggesting that the community approve their permit because they say our herb was good because they compared it to Burger King. No. I organized, it woke me up. I said, I'm going to be a part of my community. I formed a nonprofit called Japa Freedmen's Town Association. We're partnered with North Texas Legal Aid, Dallas Sierra Club, Lake Women's Voters, a lot of entities, IPC. We worked with a lot of people to fight this and we won, y'all. I'm just going to cut it short. We won. They offered me $100,000 in the city hall. We was at the meeting. They pulled me out the meeting. This is a multi-billion-dollar company. He said, we want to give you $100,000. Go get the community to come out here and say yes. I said, no, you should have told me that last week. You wait the day of the vote. And $100,000? I'm saying to myself, I could spend $100,000. So that's not enough for a community, right? So the vote was denied and they didn't get their permit. Ever since then, I have been fighting to change the environment, racism that we face in the Japa community, not just my community, the city of Dallas. I am the city of Dallas environmental commissioner for District 7. I represent Fur Park, South Dallas, Joppa, Buckner Terrace, and a little bit of Oak Cliff over there off of Corinth. So I got involved, and my thing is now the environmental racism has to stop. It's impacting the black and brown communities south of Dallas. And so I'm awesome and excited that Caitlin and her school has brought our community to everyone in this room to know our story. We live around industrial every day. We smell chemicals, we hear trains, we have dust storms, but on the inside of our community, we are revitalized. We are families. We are people who love our community. We have urban farm in our community. We have a nice park. So it's someone like me stood up and said, it's time to stop. And ever since then, the city of Dallas has been working with me to come up with a comprehensive environmental climate action plan. You can visit the City of Dallas website. We have 8 missions, and air quality is one. So moving forward to now, as the commissioner, I have put an air quality monitor in Joppa. I have put one in Dixon Circle. If anyone knows South Dallas is too. So go back to the first part of my story. When I started fighting, the city of Dallas didn't even have air quality monitors. Only air quality monitor they have was right over here by Love Field. The truth. So now we have Joppa, South Dallas, West Dallas, Flora Farms is over there by the McCullum landfill off of 310. We have them. So we're starting to put air quality monitors in communities to get data. So you have the brochures of the information about Joppa. And some of these companies, the Austin Asphalt Batch Company is gone. As of June 26th, my commission and the city of Dallas, they moved out. They left Joppa. So we stopped one, we stopped 2, and we're working on one more. I'm working with the EPA right now to stop Texas Ready Star. It's another industrial company around Joppa. So I have cleaned up 2 of them, and we're working to clear the Joppa. We can't move the train. The train is there, but we can always regulate the train. Because we had a derailment last summer, and thank God it was on the refrigerators and grain. It could have been chemicals because that train transports chemicals. So my mission now, moving forward, is to change policies that protect communities like Joppa. And we're putting in regulations with the city. So I'm on. Thank everyone for hearing our story about my community. I would like to invite everyone to Joppa. If you can reach out, JFTA Dallas on Facebook, JFTA on X, Twitter, whatever the name of that one is. And you can come. We have an urban farm. We have urban work day every third Saturday of the month in our farm called Joppa Mama Farm. And then November the 4th, we're having a Stride for Diabetes 5K walk. So I want to like to invite anyone who wants to come and visit our community and see the resilience that we have there facing the environmental racism that we live around. Thank you.
So just so you know what you're going to see in the format and making a difference in our communities, you're going to have 4 constructive speeches, each followed by a 1-minute CX period. And then the chair, the panelist, will ask each side 1 question, and then we will have 4 reply speeches. So this is going to go pretty quickly. The students are just going to come up one right after the other. Okay. I now invite the first speaker.
Hello, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to thank the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, Dallas Urban Debate Alliance, and Dallas ISD for the opportunity to participate in the iResolve debate series. Japa with 2 P's and an A, Japi with 2 P's and 2 E's, and Japi with 2 P's and a Y. I am proud to introduce to you my special community. Japa's history dates back to early Native American settlements, but became home to Henry Crentine, an enslaved person during the Civil War. After the war, former enslaved people from a nearby plantation joined him to make Japa a freedman's town. Sadly, the town's fundamental right to freedom has been challenged, and we have the duty of restoration. This is why I'm so proud to propose today's motion that this House asks the City of Dallas would address housing inequality by focusing resources on improving the air quality of the Japa community. So what is the duty to redress? The City of Dallas has seen uneven growth in its different populations as a result of discriminatory policies, while at the same time undermining Black prosperity. According to KERA, white preferences and outcomes were considered in deciding which neighborhoods got infrastructure improvements, which businesses won city contracts, where polluting industries were permitted to operate, and where public amenities were built. Communities of color were disinvested and underserved. Throughout the rise of racial zoning practices, industrial businesses were pushed south of Dallas near Japa. For example, although Japa has had an influx of affordable housing options, all thanks to Habitat for Humanity and their 0% financial modeling, the bigger picture is that these few affordable housing options are in these industrial areas, thus perpetuating housing inequality. My community's population is less than 1,000, and primarily people of color with low income, while our neighbors are a roofing shingle manufacturer, 2 concrete manufacturers, otherwise known as batch plants, and the Union Pacific Railroad, combined with the heavy traffic of Interstate 45 and the Texas Highway 310. All of these variables contribute to the ground level ozone, harming the air quality surrounding us. According to the Japa Environmental Equity Project, the consequences of these zoning practices are that, per capita, no other Dallas neighborhood suffers from a higher pollution burden. All of these pollution sources contribute to the degradation of air quality, human health, and safety in the Japa community, says Michael Bates, an attorney from Illegal Aid. The Japa area has been overwhelmed with polluting industries in this area for a very long time. Panel, couple of notes on framework. Firstly, why is Japa the center of attention of today's debate? Why not pay attention to all of Dallas's communities that need help? Well, Japa has historically experienced the brunt of air pollution in Dallas. The average life expectancy in Japa is 13 years less than someone living in Highway Park, partly due to the air we breathe. Yes, I said it correctly, 13 years less. We can acknowledge that Japa isn't the only marginalized community that has been the victim of air pollution. But we can recognize that funneling resources into Japa makes it easier to fix other communities and their issues. We think that highlighting Japa creates a blueprint for dealing with other communities. We are getting insight while gathering resources on how to successfully create the initiative to apply this solution to other marginalized communities. Secondly, what is our stance in today's debate? On our side, we are taking into consideration the historically targeted Japa community, and we are advocating for a world in which we combat the problem of air pollution by solving the roots of the issue by pushing batch plants into an unhittable area. And finally, how do you decide who's won this debate? There's one very important question, panel, you'll have to ask yourself. Which side best addresses the harms caused by the city of Dallas? our actual plan, on-side proposition. We propose a comprehensive plan to focus on improving the air inequality in Japa that takes into consideration the historically extenuating harms faced by the community residents. To effectively address the extenuating harms imposed on Japa residents, we suggest the relocation of batch plants, which have historically contributed to the air quality issues in Japa, to an area with little to no residential population. At the same time, we advocate for the use of cheap advanced technology, such as particulate matter covers, on these relocated facilities. These covers act as a crucial barrier, preventing particulate matter and other pollutants from escaping to the atmosphere. By creating a healthier and safer living environment for the Japa community, we are taking a step towards rectifying the injustices they have long endured. Panel, why is our plan the best? Our plan redresses past injustices committed against Japa. This is particularly important in the context of the 1950 annexation of the Japa community by the city of Dallas, which stands as a symbol of historical mishandling. This annexation was primarily driven due to the city's insatiable appetite for resources and economic advantages and growth. In the pursuit of these objectives, the Japa community has suffered immensely, with their interests and living conditions not being taken into consideration. Since the annexation, living conditions have grown significantly worse. The plan is a testament to the need to rectify these past wrongs. By dedicating resources to improving air quality and relocating industrial facilities, we aim to redress the historical injustices inflicted upon the Japa community. Additionally, through our plan of relocating these industrial facilities to locations that are uninhabited, you guys know what I meant. We are able to end the cycle of people being targeted and facing the extreme harm that particular matter has. Thank you.
All right, can we all hear me? All right, so my first question to you, Caitlin, is how does funneling resources to Japa specifically help Floral Farms or Dixon Circle, Dallas neighborhoods that face similar environmental harms, but with wildly different circumstances? What systemic changes does your plan create for those communities?
So our argument is that these harms are uniquely caused by Dallas policies. Our principle of redress states that Dallas owes Japa a lot. Due to their annexation of Japa, they purposely placed these industrial plants, prioritizing their profit over their people, literally buying my community as a dumping ground. We've actually seen Dallas profit off these plants. They're buying billions of dollars of concrete from these batch plants to build infrastructure elsewhere. You know where else they're building infrastructure at? Highland Park, the nice white areas, right? And so Dallas has their priorities excused, but panel, through our plan, will help straighten them out. Thank you.
According to the American Lung Association, Dallas is the 18th most polluted city for ozone in America. This would mean that we are in the top 1% of the nation's most polluted cities. Several communities of color all over the Metroplex are disproportionately exposed to unhealthy air. It isn't just Japa. Marginalized communities all over Dallas suffer from the very same air pollution every single day. Panel, Japa, without a doubt, is one of the most historically significant neighborhoods in Dallas, and we believe that they deserve redress for the injustices they have endured. However, what we as a community must understand is that air quality pollution, as it relates to housing inequality, is by no means an isolated issue. Thus, we propose an alternative to the proposition's plan. This House, as the city of Dallas, would address housing inequality by revitalizing and expanding the Breathe Easy Dallas initiative, increasing access to healthcare, and creating harsher punishments for polluting entities. Through these efforts, we hope to improve air quality for all socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods in Dallas, including Japa. Note that we address the issue at its root, the impact that poor air quality has on Dallas families. So, on the principle, we contend that redress should not be the value in this debate for two reasons. Firstly, it neglects other communities of similar socioeconomic status that do not have the same history as Japa. And secondly, the principle of redress, frankly, is more symbolic than practical. While Japa's story is a compelling one, we need solutions for our city's families, not homages to history. So, what is the alternative? We propose a utilitarian approach. For those of you who do not know, utilitarianism is a philosophy that values the most good for the most people. It is the best framework for community action because it concerns the greatest amount of residents possible. Prefer our alternative. Moving on from the debate's framework, I would like to draw your attention to an urgent issue that is caused by the proposition's plan. Prop proposes that we focus on Japa due in part to its rich history and historical mistreatment. But other communities in Dallas share the same cultural significance, examples being Deep Ellum and, as our guest mentioned, Flora Farms and Dixon Circle, who suffered the same injustice. The city of Dallas only has so many resources, so when neighborhoods are forced to compete with one another for a finite supply, division inevitably ensues. History aside, what makes Japa more qualified for government assistance than other communities? The city of Dallas is obligated to serve all of its residents, so if we adopt the proposition's plan and focus on one single region, people will not be able to help but wonder, what about the rest of us? Finally, I would like to explain the first two parts of our alternative. My partner Hank will address the third. So first of all, what exactly is the Breathe Easy Dallas initiative? Well, it was a project spearheaded by the Nature Conservancy and the City of Dallas Office of Environmental Quality, that focused on collecting public health data relative to the prevalence of childhood asthma and racial and economic demographics. The study ended in 2021, but we would like to bring it back. The original project installed air quality monitors in 9 different Dallas neighborhoods to collect data on air quality. However, we wish to do more. We propose a revitalized Breathe Easy Dallas initiative in which we will firstly install air quality monitors in every Dallas neighborhood that has a median household income of less than $60,000 and or has a population in which more than 50% of its residents are an underrepresented minority. They will be placed at the nearest DISD school when fitting. With the data gathered from these monitors, we will identify the specific needs of each neighborhood and address the healthcare needs of each accordingly by allocating resources and establishing clinics in areas according to need. So, how does this solve the harms presented by the proposition? Well, firstly, we are able to pinpoint communities most in need of action and assistance. Secondly, we solve for the health implications of pollution by expanding access to healthcare for affected families. And finally, we can better identify instances of environmental injustice before they become detrimental by continuously monitoring the air quality of vulnerable neighborhoods. Remember, a community cannot take action before first identifying the issue. Panel, the central question of this debate is how we can best offset the impacts of the air pollution that plagues our most vulnerable communities. As you write your ballot, be sure to take this into consideration. The city of Dallas is in crisis, and the time to act is now.
Besides the air monitors placed into impacted communities, what physical actions are actually being taken to reduce air pollution in the affected neighborhoods through your initiative, Breathe Easy Dallas?
Yeah, well, our comprehensive plan that we propose actually operates on 2 fundamental levels that manifest in a tangible way. The first being, as you mentioned, the monitors, but also the healthcare that we will provide to these affected communities. Secondly, I'd like to note that, as I mentioned earlier, a community cannot serve its residents or cannot take action before identifying the issue. So placing these monitors in these communities will allow us to identify where exactly we need to take tangible action to begin with. Secondly, I'd like for you all to imagine it as a doctor having to diagnose an illness before they can actually treat it. If all they have are the symptoms and don't know exactly what the condition is, they are not able to adequately treat whatever condition a patient might have. The same goes for the city of Dallas. If we cannot adequately diagnose the issue in each of these communities and address their specific needs, we cannot create real change or take substantial action.
Sandra Crumby, a 67-year-old Japa native, uses a small device to spray medicine directly into her lungs to keep her heart from failing. She has emphysema. Her illness has been directly linked to her neighborhood, Japa. Japa has been cited by some researchers as the most air-polluted neighborhood in Dallas. The residents of Japa are greatly concerned about the health risks posed by the Texas Star Ready Mix, the biggest batch plant located in Japa. Batch plants are known for being dirty, noisy, but most importantly, a source of particulate matter pollution. The microscopic solids or liquid droplets produced by particulate matter can be inhaled, penetrate the lungs, and even enter the bloodstream, causing serious and long-lasting health problems. Prioritizing Japa means recognizing that systemic discrimination and historical injustices have created unique and urgent needs within this community. Side opposition tries to propose a utilitarian framework to ignore the very particular and harmful mistreatment to Japa, but even at that, they don't even feel the broader utilitarian benefits they say they are. Claiming to focus on more people doesn't mean they have actually proposed a solution that actually helps more people. I will expand on this later throughout my speech. But also, don't let them try to trick you into thinking that we don't create benefits that go outside of Japa. Our argument is that the best kind of way to build up the momentum we need to improve other communities in Dallas ultimately starts with Japa. Now, let's take a look at the opposition's proposed alternative. While the opposition's proposal to expand the Breathe Easy Dallas initiative may seem promising on the surface, it fundamentally overlooks the key aspects of the issue. Firstly, the idea of expanding the initiative is flawed because simply because increasing the number of air monitors won't address the root causes of the air quality problems in the Japa community. Air monitors are passive tools that collect data, but they don't actively combat pollution or improve the living conditions for the residents. Secondly, we already have air monitors in place in Dallas, and the data that would be generated from these monitors would be redundant. We already have evidence that shows that residents of Japa are having a number of health problems, including asthma, lung cancer, heart attacks, infertility, and even death. What more statistics and evidence do the residents of Japa need to have in order to actually receive tangible improvements to their community? Next, the opposition also proposes increasing access to healthcare for individuals affected by these batch plants, but they don't actually stop the harm itself in the first place. Additionally, this approach runs the risk of perpetuating the problem by seemingly allowing companies to pollute more, just because they're under the assumption that these residents already have healthcare support. This overall creates a dangerous incentive for these companies to maintain or even increase their pollutant emissions. Next, side opposition believes that their alternative, revenue skimming, enacts harsher punishments on pollutants and would defend us from these polluting entities. However, we do not believe this will happen because Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has a long history of suing the EPA and trying to protect companies from being held liable for their environmental damage. Furthermore, even if side opposition's plan is enforced as it's designed, they've miscalculated the effect that fines will have on these industrial plants. Imposing fines will not cause these companies to reduce their pollutants because they can treat the fine as part of the cost of doing business and raise their prices to remain profitable. We've seen this similarly play out with pharmaceutical companies being fined for helping the cause of the opioid crisis. Even with heavy fines, their harmful practices are still financially profitable, so they never felt a pressure to actually meaningfully change their practices. Let's all acknowledge that companies will treat fines for polluting as merely the cost of doing business and to prioritize their profit over their people. When we examine the reasons behind the annexation of Japa and the city's ongoing business practices, it becomes evident that profit often takes precedence over the welfare of its residents. According to KERA News, the city has spent $66 million purchasing products and services, including asphalted concrete from Austin Industries. The city of Dallas has heard cries and grievances from the Japa community and their tribulations with the plant. However, they continue to turn a blind eye and stab the historic town in the back by continuing to purchase the polluter's product. Now, why do we need to focus on Japa? In 2019, Tamco, a notable asphalt plant in Japa, self-reported the staggering release of 34.5 tons of particulate matter. The CNT batch plant, also in Japa, emits 5 to 10 tons of particulate matter annually, and the Texas Star Ready Mix, also in Japa, isn't even required to monitor its particulate matter emissions, but it's estimated to be releasing anywhere from 10 to 25 tons of particulate matter per year. The health and well-being of the Japa community depends on our ability to address this core problem, and by doing so, we take a substantial step towards safeguarding their future.
In response to our plan to punish polluting entities, you claimed, and I quote, that Dallas is going to prioritize their profits over their people. If this is true, how can you expect the city to adopt your plan?
Well, we can still expect them to adopt our plan because they wouldn't be losing any profit from these plants. The only difference is that in our world, we would be placing them in a different location where they aren't continuously targeting or hurting these low-income communities.
All right. To start, I would like to acknowledge, like the previous three debaters, the obvious structural and systemic racism that the Japa community has faced. I'd also like to, like my opponents have, address the systemic racism that communities like Dixon Circle and Floral Farms and West Dallas as a whole have experienced. Oh, sorry, I forgot. They don't address that at all. Interesting. Anyways, we must recognize that to truly address that structural violence and racism that has been inflicted upon the Joppy community and many others, like I just mentioned, we must focus not only on alleviating the symptoms, as the proposition does, but simply, we cannot, I apologize. We cannot simply focus on alleviating the symptoms, which in the proposition's case is simply moving these polluters somewhere else. Instead, we need to address the underlying causes of this historic injustice. Thus, we are compelled to consider the collective well-being of every Dallas resident, recognizing that the health and prosperity of one community are inextricably linked to the health and prosperity of all. For example, like I mentioned, and our fantastic speaker mentioned, Dixon Circle, who similarly to Japa has faced historic racism from the Dallas city. Now, I'd also like to mention that Dixon Circle has a long history, just like Japa. They were actually annexed in 1889, which is quite shocking, honestly. Now, allow me to draw your attention to the 2012 EPA report on air quality in North Texas, which concluded that 10 out of 12 counties in DFW have dangerous levels of ground level ozone. Firstly, ground level ozone rose to unsafe levels 11 years ago in this study, something that Prop seemingly does something about in their first speech and then ignores in their second speech as they move on to particulate air matter. It seems almost as if both of these arguments are incongruent because, as I know, the O3 that is in the ground level in our everyday life in Dallas is caused by chemical plants, which are not in Japa. Now, secondly, the air we breathe doesn't adhere to the lines we draw on maps. It does not discriminate based on zip code or demographic. It impacts us all, from the quiet streets of Japa to the bustling thoroughfares of downtown. We cannot confine our efforts to isolated pockets. We must rise to the occasion as a united city, addressing environmental racism wherever we find it. To address the systemic issues that have perpetuated this injustice, we must transform the very fabric of our urban landscape. We cannot simply mitigate this environmental harm, as side proposition is, but actively work to address the causes of the imbalance we've seen for decades, or we'll just get new polluters tomorrow. Now, on to my arguments. Firstly, I will be addressing the structural inequity that communities such as Japa and many others face. So, as side proposition proposes, relocating the batch plants that currently impact Japa may provide temporary relief. However, we must acknowledge that this alone will not rectify the systemic issues at hand, which I honestly asked Caitlin, how can you provide systemic change? And she responded, oh, well, we need to focus on Japa. Yes, that's a practical change, not a systemic one, and something that will obviously come back to bite us. Now, merely shifting these facilities to uninhabited areas within Dallas, again, might alleviate the immediate concerns of the residents of Joppa. Only, of course, if the ground level ozone production doesn't kill the city as a whole anyways. Again, I will take this as something the proposition does not address. Either way, it doesn't represent a comprehensive solution. As we've previously discussed, our goal must extend beyond palliative measures. It necessitates a citywide commitment to rectifying the underlying structural inequalities that have perpetuated environmental racism throughout the city. The proposition, to their credit, does deliver Japa painkillers, but they somehow ignore the two broken ribs beneath its chest. Our vision for revitalizing the Breathe Easy program is rooted in a commitment to comprehensive systemic change, because ultimately positive change requires knowledge. Again, as our wonderful speaker mentioned, there's been two air quality nodes placed in Dallas, in Dixon Circle and Joppa. Now, what about the communities of Floral Farms or West Dallas, which have not? We need to place those exact same provisions in those communities as well. This revamped program will not only serve as a crucial tool in addressing the immediate air quality concerns of communities like Japa, but also as a cornerstone of our broader mission to forge a much more environmentally equitable Dallas. Secondly, we commit to expanding access to healthcare resources, particularly for those disproportionately affected by environmental hazards. This means investing in clinics, services, and medical professionals who specialize in environmental health, respiratory disease, and potential cancer that has sprung up. By mitigating the health impacts of air quality issues in this way, we can actually provide healthcare services for dozens of communities with just one facility. What isn't tangible about that? Maybe we can legitimately lower that 13-year deficit that Caitlin so graciously talked about. Regarding the third and final part of our alternative, we recognize the imperative to bolster the regulatory framework surrounding the environmental practices of these businesses. Thus, we introduce a revenue skimming program, which Guadalupe previously mentioned. Depending on the amount, rate, and severity of the environmental fractions for any polluters, our plan would skim entire percentages of these polluters' revenue. This plan would work uniquely well because, one, these systems have never not worked before. For example, in the European city of Barcelona, it's worked like a charm. To be clear, these companies cannot focus on profit under this system, mostly because we are skimming revenue off the top in the first place. They will be losing profit under this system. That will change. That will legitimately change their actions. Furthermore, we redress any historic injustice by legitimately punishing the individuals who need to be held accountable. This ensures that the weight of responsibility is appropriately distributed and that those who have contributed to the environmental racism faced by communities like Japa are not only held to account, but also play an active role in rectifying the harm they've caused. And to finish my speech, I will remind you of the community tension my partner mentioned. So, I reason we must recognize that favoring one community over others and ignoring the environmental issues of those communities, again, such as Dixon Circle or West Dallas, is in itself going to cause tension between those communities. I believe that no matter the reasoning by the proposition, these communities won't be happy about the fact that their health, as well as the health of their children, would be compromised. Contrastly, our alternative will put the health of all of these marginalized communities first and reduce the tension between these communities. With that, I end my speech.
Doesn't providing healthcare resources only provide a temporary relief without actually attacking the root of the problem?
Yes, you could argue that providing a temporary healthcare services would cause temporary relief. But when we actually create a system of healthcare benefits and clinics that can create legitimate change and save the lives of many in Dallas, I view that as systemic change in every function.
A question for the proposition. Thank you so much first for bringing this really important issue to us. But my question for you is, what does it mean to truly redress a wrong?
Great question, Mr. Timmons. So what does it mean to redress? So I'm pretty sure everyone here has heard of reparations. So that's basically what it means to redress. It means to acknowledge a harm perpetuated by a huge entity onto, in this case, a smaller entity. And the actual action is them actively solving to right that wrong, right? To fix that harm. And so through our plan, through Proposition's plan, which hopefully you'll be waiting for, we actively try to give Japa their much needed reparations.
Thank you. And for side opposition, you get a question as well. What is the purpose of the air quality monitors your side is proposing for all communities throughout Dallas?
Yeah,
Great question. So as I mentioned in my first speech, and as Hank cited in his, the purpose of these air quality monitors is to be able to specifically pinpoint how polluted the air in each of these neighborhoods is and meet their needs according to that pollution. So if one neighborhood has more air quality pollution than another, we'll give them more medical supplies to meet that need. And this goes for every community in Dallas that is a part of this plan.
So we will now begin the reply speeches. Each one is 2 minutes long.
Lung disease, skin disease, cardiovascular disease, neurological disorders, asthma, and cancer. These are just a few of a laundry list of conditions caused by poor air quality. If you know anyone, perhaps an acquaintance, student, friend, family member, or peer who struggles with any one of these conditions, you know it is of the utmost importance that we identify and treat the illness before it is too late. We, the opposition, advocate for a world in which the city of Dallas does just that. This debate can be boiled down to two key issues, the first being on the principle, redress, and utilitarianism. The proposition contends that due to the redress they are owed, this debate should focus on Japa. And you know what? They're right. After all, the motion does state this House, as Japa, would address housing inequality. Oh, wait, no, sorry. The motion actually reads, this House, as the city of Dallas, would address housing inequality. We would tell you that if this were a debate about how Japa should address the issues that plague its community, it would make perfect sense to focus on that specific neighborhood. However, that is not the case. This debate is about the action our city should take as a collective. The moment that Dallas forsakes the rest of our city in favor of pandering to a specific community is the moment that City Hall has failed its people. To clarify once more, we are not against providing aid to Japa. We sympathize with the systemic issues they face throughout their rich history. However, there are two fundamental differences between our approach and the proposition. Firstly, we would advocate for serving all of Dallas's people in need. And secondly, we would actually punish polluters for their actions as opposed to merely relocating them as the proposition has proposed. The second key issue in this debate is demographics, Japa or a citywide solution. The proposition has given many reasons as to why we should focus on Japa, and we applaud them for this. However, what they have not done in 13 minutes of speech time is give adequate reasons as to why the city of Dallas should not improve air quality for all of its communities. The most they've done is try to tell us that it's not possible. Firstly, is this truly the pessimistic attitude we want to have towards change in our community? Secondly, fundamentally, neither team in this debate believes that serving all of Dallas is a bad thing. So what's stopping us? Panel, audience, opponents, we urge you to join us in our endeavor to make our beautiful city a better place for all of our neighbors. However, we can only do this if we give indiscriminately to every family that is plagued by the impacts of pollution. Emphysema does not discriminate, and neither does asthma. So this begs the question, why should we?
All right. Panel, you've heard some very compelling arguments on both sides of the debate today, but I'll first be giving you a couple of clarifications for this round and then going on to weigh both proposition and opposition's plans. So a couple of clarification. Opposition uses a lot of pretentious languages throughout their speech, but they have failed to look up a couple of definitions. Ground ozone is not just simply pollution from chemical plants. It's from traffic. It's from industrial plants. It's from batch plants, concrete plants. What does Japa have? Those things. So when Hank offers you this argument that we've made no contact on ozone pollution and that we've disregarded it, let's disregard Tank's comment, because yes, we've told you ozone ground levels do contribute to air pollution, and thus we've made contact. So opposition claims in their speeches, and I quote, Japa has a lot of homages. We actually need solutions. And just from that claim alone, panel, opposition has failed to realize that the many marginalized communities that are plagued by air pollution. Thus, I believe that the opposition has a passive alternative, meaning that their solution doesn't help air pollution. In the grand scheme of things, their alternative doesn't attempt to solve the root cause of the harm. Both sides have agreed on what the harm is. Air pollution is a widespread problem affecting housing inequality, but only on one side, which has actually provided you with a tangible solution. On our side, our plan is something that you can see, something that you can feel, and most importantly, something that you can breathe. By physically removing these polluting entities from Japa, we are actively solving the solution. We told you earlier that Dallas tends to prioritize their profit over their people. By relocating the plants, we allow for Dallas to redress their harms. By prioritizing Japa, we focus our efforts on a specific community. What makes Japa unique in this debate is our motivation, our drive, and our passion. From our guest speaker, Tamika Durrell, who has appeared in the news dozens of times to advocate for our community, to Facebook groups formed out of coalition and unity for making a change to my neighborhood, we have the power to make change and have cleaner air. However, in opposition's world, they fail to realize how easy it is to become another statistic, just another number. It's almost like opposition is missing something. And I think it's their pathos, their emotional connection to the root issue. This is important because without it, you can't facilitate actual change. Without the backing of a community, Dallas just sees statistics, not people. This makes it harder for Dallas to actually enact their alternative. Why? Because there isn't faces to the names, actual bodies to the stats. If no one is making noise, is it an actual problem? The increased uses of air monitors and the collection of data is just the doctor charting the symptoms and then prescribing you medicine. There's no blood work being drawn, no MRIs, no CT scans, whatever you want to call it, no diagnostics being done. There are no preventative measures being done to tackle the cause of the illnesses. In this case, no policy to help the marginalized. Japa is the blueprint and will continue to be the blueprint. It is to be used to build up other underserving communities. If you were to side with the opposition's passive alternative, you will be allowing marginalized communities to continue to suffocate and to choke. Thank you.
All right. Panel and audience, before I get into the meat of my speech, I'd like to make 4 clarifications. Firstly, there was a misquoting by Caitlin of my partner Hope on the idea that my partner Hope said Japa's story is a compelling one, that we need solutions for our city's families, not homages to history. And because of that, we need to get some solutions for the families of Japa. I don't see the confusion here on the proposition side. Now, I'd also like to make the 3 other clarifications. Firstly, our opponents have completely dropped the idea of tension between these communities because, again, what are the communities of Dixon Circle going to say when they realize that their 2-month-old baby is going to almost inextricably, almost definitely have asthma because of the proposition's plan? Now, I'd also like to say how they hardly engage with the idea of healthcare at all, other than the idea that healthcare is somehow not systemic. Again, I would encourage everybody in this room to think about the 2-month-old baby who may or may not get asthma because of the proposition's plan. And then I'd also like to make a clarification on the personal connection that me and Hope share with the issue at hand. Hope, as is in his hand right now, is asthmatic. If there's anybody in this room who is not more invested in this issue, it is Hope. Okay? I cannot abide by that statement. Now, panel, you and the audience will remember that 10 of 12 Metroplex counties had dangerous levels of ground level ozone 11 years ago. Again, I will make the argument that ozone is not in the process of concrete creation because ozone is O3, as we all know from our basic environmental science class. And because of that, it is not in the creation process of concrete. Anyways, in this report, we obviously see that any questions of healthcare are moot, other than the questions of how we will give these victims the healthcare necessary. Half a generation has been born in the Metroplex with dangerous air quality abound. The proposition simply ignores this. The community of Japa, although it will benefit from the removal of these concrete plants, will suffer in the long term with no healthcare plan in sight. Knowing that, I will move to the propositions world. Then I will introduce the world me and my partner have advocated for. In the propositions world, firstly, I will again mention that the people of Japa and Dallas will chronically suffer from respiratory illness. In 10 years, data surrounding the air quality of Dallas outside of Dixon Circle and Japa will be 12 years old at the absolute best. Multiple communities in Dallas will hold grudges over the unfair allocation of resources to the community of Japa. And finally, the owners of these concrete plants will be richer, fatter, and consequence-free for their what my opponents might say morally reprehensible actions and what I would call racism. Oh, and again, to the proposition's credit, there's a couple of concrete plants somewhere else, probably polluting other communities if both sides are being honest. Now, in our world, there are tangible solutions everywhere. What isn't tangible about clinics all over the city providing the necessary medical resources for victims of environmental harm? What is not tangible about air quality monitors being able to record, analyze, and address changes in air quality in real time? What is not tangible about the perpetrators of environmental violence and racism that Japa and many other communities have faced, paying into these systems and legitimately helping the victims of this racism? And finally, what is not tangible about the many communities of Dallas coming together to exemplify the tenets of solidarity, cooperation, and housing equality? In my opinion, these are all tangible. Thus, there's only one ballot choice, an opposition one.
As we stated earlier, a resident of Japa statistically has 13 years less of their life expectancy than a resident in a different community. We have constantly emphasized the devastating impact of air pollution on the Japa community and the removal of these plants in underserved communities in order to actively enact change. Yes, proposition acknowledges that other communities have their unique problems. But again, like I said earlier, in order to build the momentum, we need to actually improve communities in Dallas. We first need to begin with addressing the problems in Japa. As our speaker stated earlier, air monitors were first placed in Japa, and this just goes to show how Japa is the blueprint to enact change. So to close off today's debate, I will begin by comparing the worlds on both sides, starting with the opposition's world. Side opposition tries to build this narrative that they are doing the most good for the most amount of people, but this is not true. Instead, we see a passive plan being put into place that doesn't actually solve the root of the problem that we see within these communities, which are batch or concrete plants. Instead of solving the issue, side opposition gives people inhalers to alleviate the symptoms that plants cause, and they place redundant air monitors in areas we already have statistics that prove that these communities are suffering. We only continue to see these historically marginalized communities continuing to suffer for a long period of time. And when they are finally acknowledged, they're just handed an inhaler. Now, in Proposition's world, we actively acknowledge the historical harms that have been inflicted upon Japa stemming from its annexation. We propose the relocation of these batch plants and that have been proven to be directly linked towards the long-term health problems that we have constantly mentioned throughout our speeches. We don't administer painkillers to the issue. We actually go in and cure the illness, which are these batch plants, by removing them. Prioritizing Japa means recognizing the systemic discrimination and historical injustices have created urgent and unique needs within this community. And in Proposition's world, the residents of Japa are finally being focused on after their history of being constantly ignored and targeted. Panel, do you want sick people to get sicker? If so, side with the opposition. But if you want to actually put this issue but if you actually want to put an end to this issue at hand, that we see happening in Japa, side with the proposition.
Coaches, I'm going to ask if you can help just keep your kids at their tables just for a few more minutes, etc. The judges are going to make a few comments about our round. We know that we don't have a lot of time. Coaches, also at your tables, if you would there's a set of discussion questions that you can follow up with your students back at home, and please take those handouts with you. That provides a nice instructional practice for you. I'm also hoping that those of you who want to try community action debate, you've seen a model of one, that this will help you prepare going forward. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to the judges for a few comments.
Hi. First of all, congratulations. That was a magnificent job. One of the reasons why I support this program, Urban Debate Leagues, and I have for a long time, is because it helps students to find their voice. And the best thing that you can do with your voice is to advocate for those around you. And this is a great example of that. And I wholeheartedly support these types of community advocacy programs. It's important to talk about foreign policy and domestic policy in the U.S. federal government, but this is where we live, and this affects all of us, and it brings real awareness. I learned things today, having lived in Dallas for a long time, that I would not have learned otherwise. And to me, that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. I thought you all both had some excellent arguments. I think both plans would work really well together to solve some things. But as that is, I think you both. I love the idea. One thing I would have liked to see more of is, I like you saying Japa is the blueprint and saying that again and again. They say that's just a symbolic action, but I mean, I'm a professor, a rhetorician, and I think you can say symbolic actions are important. When we make these symbolic actions, others see those actions, and perhaps it won't just spread around Dallas, but it'll spread to Fort Worth and to Austin, to Houston and Oklahoma City. And this is how you get changes, by focusing on this is important and everybody knowing that story. I loved when you talked about the pathos and putting a face to the problem. I think that's absolutely important for people kind of understanding that. I also think in the opposition that y'all have some good arguments too. One argument I would have liked to see advance more is this idea of pitting communities against each other. Because when we talk about historical or institutional or systematic racism, things like a up group putting smaller groups or subgroups against each other historically is a way in which progress for those groups has been halted, to make them against each other and to compete for resources. And in a community where we're trying to solve these problems and resources are finite, that competition for resources is real. So if you just give it to one and ignore all of the others, that can cause infighting that can really make the problem worse rather than solving it. And that's all I'll pass this on and let the other judges speak.
Thank you all. That was really great. I really hope this type of debate flourishes all over debate. This was much more concrete, much more interesting than a lot of the abstractions of nuclear war and things like that we normally see in academic debate. These are real issues with real concerns and real facts and real things that touch us. And, you know, there are real decisions that can be made. So I really appreciated watching that. I've never seen one of these before. My comment for the proposition, the inflection that I saw reminds me of a problem you often see. If you have 10 sick people and each of them needs 10 pills and you only have 10 pills, is it fair to give one pill to everybody and nobody gets relief or nobody gets well, or do you give all 10 people to one person? And then how do you pick the one person? That's kind of the dilemma that y'all ferreted out in your positions. One of the questions I had for the proposition is, why are we assuming a lack of resources, and did we maybe skip a step on arguing that the first solution, or the first part to any solution, is figuring out how to get more resources allocated? As Dr. Salinas said, the problem is a limited amount of resources, but I'm not even sure that for a lot of what you're saying, resources are the problem. I mean, you're not going to pay the batch plant to move. It doesn't cost the city of Dallas money to, it may cost them future revenue, but that's different than costing it money that it doesn't have today. And I think I would have liked to have heard a little bit more tackling of the very, very practical problem of people throw this idea, we don't have the resources, we need the money, and yet, you know, this is one of the richest cities in the country. It has one of the lowest tax rates, and we have no income tax to boot. So that would have been sort of an a priori step to the arguments you guys were making. But I really liked what you had to say. I agreed on the symbolic step, and I thought you did offer a rather concrete way to solve the problems that you identified. Is it the opposition? Is that okay? I had con, and then I heard someone call you the opposition. So sorry. So for the opposition, I think your argument I thought was very good, which is there are some, I think in a way you focused on remedying a lot of the prior acts. You know, you were more focused retrospectively on here's all the problems that have happened, and you guys are going to ignore those problems, and you're going to make other people wonder why they're being left behind. That's not good for the city. That's not the way this is supposed to go. I think the resource constraints that plagued the proposition kind of plagued your arguments as well. And I would have liked to see you guys tackle that as well. Saying we need more help for everyone and everyone should benefit, again, sort of runs headlong into that problem. And of course, you get a line drawing problem. You know, I think you guys put in I wrote it down and I don't have it at my fingertips, but you sort of set an average median income cutoff. Everyone below that gets it. I would have liked to have heard debate from both sides as to why that's the line that you drew, and isn't that open you up to a lot more criticism down the line?
Great job by both sides. The thing I'd like to add is I really like this format in that we're talking about real issues, real people. It is not externalized to folks who are out there, but folks who are right here and living amongst us. It also gives us ways for us to think about and then also workshop solutions to very real problems. So thank you all. I know we're running short on time. I can talk to you more about the individual arguments, what I thought, things along those lines, but let's give them one more round of applause. I'd also like to say thank you for Duda for coming up with this format, because it's really cool. It's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we thank our NAUDL host. We thank those of you who are watching us streaming. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you know how to reach the Doodah people. If any of you watching would like to support our efforts, you just have to find dallasdebate.org, and we are happy to work with you. Coaches, please feel free to take those handouts. Again, there's a group discussion questions and the handouts on our little community with us. We thank our guest speaker for coming and honoring us with her presence. If you on the way out, if you find more pizza or cookies on the way out, you're welcome to take that. If you could take as much trash as you can, there are trash cans outside. And coaches, hopefully high school coaches, we'll see you on Saturday. Thank you.